Welcome to the V Insurance webinar for Bicycle New South Wales affiliated bugs. I'm Alastair Ferguson, Bicycle New South Wales CEO, and this presentation will run through Bicycle New South Wales insurance coverage for bugs. This video was recorded in February 2021, and we will add updates to the video if anything changes in our insurance coverage. I'm going to hand over to Rob Veal from V Insurance to talk through the details of our insurance coverage for our affiliated bicycle user groups. Rob, welcome. Thank you very much for offering to alleviate some of these questions from our bugs and to explain, V Insurance and I guess the overall insurance product that we have for Bicycle New South Wales.
Thanks, Alistair. Thanks for the opportunity, guys. Just by way of introduction, also have from V Insurance, Lucy here on my left or right, depending on how it comes up on the screen. Lucy's the account manager for your program and works with myself on a day-to-day basis, answering questions and putting claims through and that sort of thing. And also, I don't know how it works on this, scrolling down, you'll also see Shauna. Shauna's our broking manager that sits across all our accounts. So as a team, we sort of work on this. So once again, thank you for the opportunity. We're just going to go through the cover that is in place for all Bicycle New South Wales members, and then get into the nitty-gritty of some of the questions which are relating to bicycle user groups. So who are we? Probably the main thing is that we're an insurance broker, which means legally we work for you, not for the insurance company. So as much as we've got insurance in our name, we're not the actual insurance company paying claims or denying claims or that sort of thing. We're a broker. We access the insurance market. We have your policies with various insurance companies, some of them through Lloyd's of London. We are Australia's largest sports leisure insurance broker, and we look after a number of cycling entities, which I'll explain a little bit further on the next page. We're also aligned to a group called Willis Towers Watson. They're the oldest insurance broker in the world, back in the UK, and we tap into their resources when required. So we're a mobile front-end specialist in sports, but we also have access to all the global markets that Willis taps into. So some of our clients, as I mentioned there before, we look after a number of what we call national sporting organisations, so Athletics Australia, Basketball Australia, Netball Australia, and also some of the cycling bodies like AusCycle. I'm sure all of you would be aware that that's recently formed with the combination of Cycling Australia, BMX Australia, Mountain Biking Australia. Look after Triathlon Australia and some of the other recreational bodies around the place. So there are two main insurance policies that are in place for the members of Bicycle New South Wales. On an annualised basis, we meet with Alison and Loretta and the team to renew these policies. There are some other policies, but they're probably covering the entity of Bicycle New South Wales, but these are the two main member ones. So Public and Products Liability, and it also includes Professional Indemnity. That one's very important for cyclists because it's difficult to buy that form of insurance on a one-off basis. You can get it as a party householder's insurance. There are some cycling insurance products out there. With our knowledge of the insurance market, we've recently done a review, and we do this on a regular basis, but we've identified that even a product like VeloSure that sells bike insurance, they offer a public liability policy, but their public liability policy does not cover cyclist claims against cyclists when in a group ride. So that's a significant exposure if you were riding and you somehow innocently or somehow were sued injured somebody and were sued by that other party in a bike ride, you're not covered under their policy. So that is important, and that Public and Products Liability and Professional Indemnity policy also embraces bugs and bicycle bug leaders, or whatever the terminology is, I probably should know. So public liability, who does it cover? I don't want to read this verbatim because I think this session may be recorded or is available down the track. So if you ever want to read it, hopefully it's available for you to sort of go through it and fine-tooth comb. But it's covering Bicycle New South Wales as the governing body, all members, officials, bicycle ride leaders, there's the terminology, volunteers and bugs. So getting into the detail there, but all those entities, we're acting in your best interest to make sure that we get everybody covered. When does the cover apply? To be blunt, it's 24/7 when you're on a bike. When are you not covered? Probably the main one would be if you're racing. The thought process behind this is Bicycle New South Wales is recreational riding, not racing. So that's why we're able to keep the insurance costs down, because to be honest, that's when a lot of claims occurs, when there's official training and racing and that sort of stuff for some of the other bicycle bodies. So we've excluded that under the policy. The limits of liability, public and products liability is $20 million. Bicycle user groups probably, but every now and again may need to provide evidence of insurance for councils or other property owners. $20 million normally satisfies their requirements. If you go off to Bunnings and do some fundraising with sausage sizzles, Bunnings need $20 million as well. The professional indemnity is, those of you, some of you are probably professionals in your day life and your normal life or whatever it is, that's covering you or officials, coaches, ride leaders, and the like for decisions that they may make and they are incorrect. So you're being held accountable for your incorrect advice. No different than a doctor, a lawyer, or accountant, an insurance broker. If you provide poor advice, you're professionally negligent, you can be held accountable. So do we get many PI claims for sports? Certainly there's never been a PI claim for Bicycle New South Wales. Over 30 years of sports insurance, I've been involved in about 4 PI claims. So they're few and far between, but you do need to have your public liability and PI connected together. So there's no argument as to which insurance company or how the claim's going to get paid. There is an excess, and it's $500 for bodily injury and $1,000 for property damage. They are reasonably chunky. Why is there a $1,000 property damage excess? Most of the public liability claims that we see are for damaged cars. So when a situation where someone scratches a car, takes off a side mirror and that sort of thing. So the insurance companies are trying to avoid paying those claims, like all good insurance companies don't want to pay claims. They put on those excesses. So yeah, and that is very similar to, identical to what other recreational bodies have as well. Thanks, Alistair. Some exclusions under the public liability policy, use of bikes for commercial related activities. I know that probably doesn't specifically relate to bugs, but just on a general consensus, we're not wanting to cover, or the insurance company is not wanting to cover couriers and that sort of thing. COVID-19, and with COVID's reasonably topical these days, and insurance companies trying to avoid anything to do with it. So once again, I don't think it's a big issue for you, but if somehow there was litigation which related to COVID, this insurance policy doesn't pick it up, and that is common for the majority of liability policies for sports. And unfortunately, not a great thing to talk about, but molestation and sexual assault, we haven't got that included in the policy as well. Can you get that cover? Yes, you can. It's horribly expensive, but I don't think that's an exposure for Bicycle New South Wales and the bugs that needs to be addressed, compared to some of our other clients like athletics and swimming and all those sorts of things where it is very topical. As I said, we're an insurance broker, so this insurance for the liabilities placed with a group called SLE Worldwide. They tap into a Lloyd's market. So SLE is an underwriting, or we call an underwriting agency. The ultimate insurer is Lloyd's of London. And we just put there, we'll go into a bit more detail later on, but what does liability insurance cover situations where a member injures somebody and they're held accountable for all those injuries? So if they knock over a pedestrian or another bike rider, that would be picked up under this policy. And that includes the legal costs and any compensation that either the insurance company pays or the courts decides need to be paid. It also covers if you collect the car and that sort of thing. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Public liability claims, as I said, they're infrequent. The most common cycling claims we get are for damaged cars And if that occurs, it's probably best to call us, and we have a 24-hour service because a lot of claims occur after hours. So please ring us and we can talk you through the process. And as ride leaders and bugs and that sort of stuff, you're probably going to lead to some of those circumstances where a loss could occur for either you or one of your members of the bug. It's just that we're here to help you talk through those circumstances. And it's very hard to have a broad brush, one size fits all response, because quite often what happens is a loss occurs, everybody denies it's their fault or pushes it on somebody else, or the car owner's saying it's your fault, give me cash now. It's those sorts of circumstances where you always deny liability, which I think most people sort of understand that from householders insurance and all the rest of it. But then calling us if you possibly can. I would certainly never give cash on the street and all that sort of stuff to make things go away, because once the heat goes down, then we can work out who is liable and how we can settle these sorts of things. Yeah, because quite often it's a he said, she said, and all the rest of it. One, we need to find out whether the person's a member by contacting Bicycle New South Wales, and then we can sort of activate the process of helping you defend the claim, or if you are responsible, then getting the claim paid by the insurance company. The insurance company, which is SLE for public liability, will take over the matter and act in your best interest, which could be denying the claim, settling the claim, saying, hey, we're going to go to court and fight this one because we are not at fault. Personal accident is where, unfortunately, most of the claims occur. That's covering injuries sustained whilst riding a bike. And, you know, over the years that I've been involved in your program, which goes back almost 20 years, unfortunately, there has been some larger personal accident claims, but it also includes some other benefits, which we'll touch on the next couple of pages. So thanks. The next part of the program, which is for all members, is personal accident insurance. That wordy page there is basically saying that as much as Bicycle New South Wales and ourselves have put in place a group policy, it doesn't take into account individual circumstances. So if people have a large mortgage, they may need a higher death benefit. If people are the main breadwinner, they may need a higher loss of income benefit. So what we're saying there is it's a group policy, it doesn't cover everything. You should also consider taking out income protection, private health insurance, and life insurance if you have a need for it all. That's sort of, I don't know, wordy document anyway. So getting in a bit to the nitty gritty of personal accident, who's covered. Main thing is it covers all the members, officials, voluntary workers, coaches, ride leaders, the whole shebang. I suppose ride leaders are only covered if they are a member of Bicycle New South Wales, which I believe is a condition of being a ride leader anyway. Once again, scope of cover connects in with the liability. It's 24/7 on a worldwide basis whenever you're riding a bike. And there is an exclusion on the personal accident where if anything to do with racing is excluded, unless it's organised by Bicycle New South Wales. I know they have spring racing carnivals and used to have big rides and all that sort of stuff. I know they're not races, but they're covered as well. Age limits from 0. I don't know, you can ride a bike when you're 0, but anyway, 0 to 100. And getting into the benefits, so the death benefits $50,000, capital benefits, and the quadriplegia and paraplegia, we've got $100,000 benefits. So there is some slight reductions for over 65s and under 18s. This is just an overall summary. Non-Medicare medical costs is where a significant number of claims occur, and that is, as it states, medical expenses which are not covered by Medicare. So unfortunately, by government legislation, they prohibit insurance companies from paying anything covered by Medicare or the gap. So what is a Medicare cost? Probably 3 primary ones: doctors, surgeons, and x-rays. They're the main ones that are covered by Medicare. And this insurance doesn't pay any benefit, whether that be the amount or any gap. So what does it pick up? It picks up things that aren't covered by Medicare, funny enough. Chiropractic, physiotherapy, dental, ambulance, acupuncture, rehabilitation costs, gym costs, all those sorts of things, anything to do with rehabilitation or the treatment of the injury. And it's not covered by Medicare. So that benefit is reasonably very high. $7,500 is a high amount compared to other sports. That said, a lot of cycling bodies have that high amount as well. Thanks, Alistair. Loss of income stands to reason, covers income lost because of a bike injury, so it goes up to $1,000 per week, and the first 14 days are excluded. So we have had some significant claims under the policy for that benefit. And $1,000 a week is, once again, if you look at some other more traditional sports, netball's $250 a week, basketball's $200 per week. Just trying to think of some others, but they're all pretty low. So $1,000 per week is a really good benefit. And there's some other ancillary benefits, as we call them, for if you're injured and unable to clean the house, or you need help for if you're a student and you need to be homeschooled and that sort of thing. There's some other benefits that come under this banner of personal accident insurance. The insurer for that, once again, as a broker, we place that with various insurance companies, but currently it's with Blend Insurance, which is tapping into an insurer called Allied World. So all the insurers that we put forward are tested and reviewed for their adequacy of finance and claims payment, that sort of thing. So but we do place it all around the place. How to make a claim, personal accident, as I said, that's where most of the claims occur. It is reasonably straightforward. From the viewpoint of there's a claim form to download. Unfortunately, it's not online, only because it's very difficult to get the thing online, because there's a few parties that need to sign off on it. One, the member needs to confirm what's occurred. We need Bicycle New South Wales to confirm that they're a member. If someone's claiming medical expenses, we need a doctor to sign off that they have had an injury and what the treatment is. So there's another party that needs to sign the claim form. If they're claiming for loss of income, we need their employer or accountant to confirm what their income is. So there's 4 parties to sign a claim form. That just makes it hard to put it online. And to be honest, when you put it online, you get more claims. So we've tried it, and we don't have anybody with an online claim portal at the moment because it's too clunky. But it is reasonably straightforward. It's a reimbursement policy from the viewpoint of medical costs, so meaning that the injured member would pay for their physio, chiropractic, ambulance, dental, whatever it might be, and then they get reimbursed from a background viewpoint. Getting back to your program, I'm a big advocate on making sure that you as members and leaders for bicycle user groups have access to information on what's covered. So there is a website which is attached to the Bicycle New South Wales website, which is just insurance specific. It's got the actual policy wordings. If you ever get bored and want to read those PDSs, they are there. It also covers your backside and my backside and Bicycle New South Wales backside from the viewpoint of it fulfills legal obligations that as a group purchasing body that we call you, because this program is purchased as a group, not individually. The access to that information for the people that are covered needs to be there, so it's available on the website. There's also some summary documents, some FAQs, and how to make details on how to make a claim and the claim form, that sort of thing. So, a couple of scenarios that I just wanted to talk through, which might knock on the head a few more questions. A scenario being that we've got a bicycle user group. The bicycle user group leader, what do we call them? Ride leader. That's a good name. They're not accredited with Bicycle New South Wales. That probably shouldn't be occurring. So there shouldn't be a non-accredited ride leader leading a bug, and they should also be a member of Bicycle New South Wales, because I think you can be accredited and do the course, but then you need to be an annualised or renew your membership on an annual basis. So that gives you both individual insurance, but also cover as a ride leader. So utopia would be that we've got the accredited bicycle ride leader, and also everybody else is a member of Bicycle New South Wales. That is utopia. Also understand that that's probably not going to occur in every circumstance. So in this first scenario, that shouldn't occur, because if you've got a non-accredited Bicycle New South Wales leader, you're in a bit of trouble if that's occurring. So, and I don't think it is from my conversations with Alistair and the team. So then the second scenario is we've got the correct bicycle ride leader. They're accredited with Bicycle New South Wales. They're a member of Bicycle New South Wales. So it means that the individual's got personal accident and liability insurance as a bicycle ride leader. They're covered for public liability if they make a decision where somebody else in the group gets injured because they're accredited, and we've got bicycle user groups as a listed insured under the public liability policy. But then my understanding is that there could be a mishmash of members and the insurance that they have in place. So some could be Bicycle New South Wales members, some could be members of, I don't know, another recreational body like Bicycle Network or whatever they're called. They could be a member of, they could say they've got insurance with Veloshore. They could say they don't take out any bicycle insurance because they take out their own home insurance. What does that mean as a leader of that group or a bicycle user group committee member and all the rest of it? The difficulty you have is you don't know if they're not members of Bicycle New South Wales, you don't know what cover they have in place. As I said, if they had Veloshore liability insurance, they probably think that they've got a wonderful product, but at the end of the day, that would mean if they were the negligent party in your ride and they injured other parties in the ride, they don't have cover. Is there much you can do about that? Probably, I don't know. The only way is to insist that they're all Bicycle New South Wales members. If they're relying on their home insurance, some top-end householders' contents insurance policies provide personal liability insurance, and it could cover cycling activities or activities outside the home. Full process behind personal liability on householders' insurance is, well, the main one is if you come into my home and you fall over on the slippery path and you sue me, you're covered under the personal liability section. It then got extended going back in time because people walked their dogs out in the street and the dog bit somebody, so that became a liability matter because it wasn't controlled or muzzled or whatever the issue was. So that they then extended the householders policy to include personal liability. But then it goes, because householders insurance is so competitive, there's good policies and not so good policies. Some personal liability sections under a householders policy do not cover playing golf, water activities, riding bikes and all the rest of it. So to some extent you've got to be insurance knowledge to work out whether you're covered whilst riding outside your home. And does it include, I don't know, mountain biking, all sorts of things. So that's a little bit of an issue if there's members in a bug that don't have Bicycle New South Wales membership, because we can then, you could then put your hand on your heart and say, well, they've got the complete cover from the viewpoint of, one, if they're injured, if they fall off the bike and they need medical treatment. If they're not a member of Bicycle New South Wales, you're relying on them to sort themselves out. But the bigger issue is if they're not a member of Bicycle New South Wales and they're relying on those other options. If they were to injure somebody in the group through their negligence because they don't know how to ride properly and they bring down somebody else under the pack, and let's say it's you, one of you guys on this call, you go, well, they brought me down, I'm going to sue them. You think, and you recover all your costs because you're significantly injured. You've made your personal accident claim and recovered some medical costs, but you're now significantly incapacitated. You go to sue them and they don't have any cover because they've got a Veloshore product, or their householders policy doesn't cover them, or they let their other recreational membership lapse or something. So just something to consider and understand the ramifications of the people in the ride. Why would a person need the personal accident public liability insurance cover that is included in Bicycle New South Wales membership, especially if he or she already has Medicare, private health insurance, home contents insurance policies? All these questions are good. So why would they need it? You could say they don't. At the end of the day, Bicycle New South Wales arranges these insurance policies on a group basis. So there are some people that have no insurance, people that have every insurance policy you possibly can have. So we've got to pick a medium line and work out what is affordable, which because it goes into membership. If you had $1 million death benefit and $2,000 a week loss of income, the cost of membership would be exorbitant because that would be it flows in with the insurance costs. So yes, there are some people that perhaps don't need the insurance as much as others, but it's an all-in compulsory basis. If it was optional, the insurance cost would be exorbitant because we're bogged down with compliance if we're having to sell a policy to each individual. So we get under the banner of a group policy, not dissimilar to buying strata insurance for a block of units. Everybody taps into a policy which is arranged by the strata managers. So hopefully that answers that. Second question, if a bug ride led by a ride leader who is not accredited by Bicycle New South Wales, are the committee members of that bug still covered by public liability insurance, for instance, for activities related to that ride? Hopefully that doesn't occur, and I'm sure that everybody hears across it that they should be accredited with Bicycle New South Wales. But let's say they slip through the gaps. I don't know how that would occur, but let's say they do. Would the committee members still be covered because we've got the bicycle user group as an insured entity under public liability policy? Yes, they would, because bicycle user groups, my understanding is that they're incorporated bodies, so that's an entity that could be sued. If somebody sued the entity of the bicycle user group and the committee members, the liability, professional indemnity insurance is in place. Not an ideal situation if we've got a non-accredited ride leader, but that's what insurance is for. If something goes pear-shaped and it gets through the gaps, we do have that cover in place. Third question, how does the claim procedure work? Can you explain the claims procedure for the following scenario? A Bicycle New South Wales member knocks over a pedestrian while riding his or her bike. Both the rider and the pedestrian are injured. Bike rider at fault. What will the claim procedure look like? So there's two parts to that. One, the individual bike rider would make a personal accident claim for covering medical costs, loss of income, or some permanent disability claim, whatever the benefit is. That's one part of the claim process. If the pedestrian is injured and the bike rider is at fault, what would happen is the pedestrian would hold the bike rider responsible, write a letter to them saying, on this day, you're riding your bike down Smith Street and you collected me and I'm holding you responsible, and my out-of-pocket costs are $1,000 and my future earnings and all the rest of it are $200,000. Give me $201,000, please. What would happen then is that letter comes into our office. We then verify that Freddie Bloggs is a member of Bicycle New South Wales. We send that to the insurance company. The insurance company then corresponds with the pedestrian that's been hit to work out, have they been hit? What are their damages? Are the damages correct? Quite often a lawyer would get involved for the third party to say, we want $2 million because they're never going to work again, all the rest of it. So the insurance company would get their lawyers involved to say, hey, we don't believe these injuries. It doesn't make sense because our members or our client side of the story sort of says that they're only travelling at 2 kilometres an hour. How could they possibly be that severely injured? All that sort of thing just plays out. Liability claims can take years to settle if it's a pedestrian and bodily injury. If it's a claim for a car, I don't know whether that's the next question, they can be settled quite quickly. It's either, yes, we believe our member was negligent, we'll pay the claim, or no, your driver cut our rider off, so we're not paying that claim. So those ones get resolved pretty quickly, and it's normally the insurance company for Bicycle New South Wales, being SLE, talking to the car insurer, being a AAMI or NRMA, or those sorts of things. The second one was point 3B, was all participants on an official bug ride, a Bicycle New South Wales member. During this ride, an accident happens with more than one rider sustaining an injury. Does each rider submit a claim form individually, or should they submit a joint claim form? If it's a personal accident claim, it is individual, so they would all just submit one. They would submit individual claims for their medical costs and loss of income and all the rest of it. The point 2 of that is, if a claim was not accepted by the insurance, what else can these riders do? Just a point of clarification, it's not, we don't accept claims. As your insurance broker, we're here to get claims settled. It would be the insurance company that says we're not paying this claim. That would be unusual, that they're not going to pay a claim. Why would they not pay a personal accident claim? It would be because it's not an accident, it's an illness. That's unusual. The more common one would be, and it doesn't happen in the cycling fraternity, but it would be a pre-existing injury. We see it with some other sports where they want to claim for their knee, and they've done their knee 10 times before and it's just deteriorated, and it's the insurance company say that's pre-existing, we're not covering that. But if at the end of the day, if insurance companies deny claims, give grief with claims, you contact Lucy, Shauna, myself and the team here, and we work on your behalf to get the claim paid in your best interest. So as I said, we rarely get disputes for cycling matters. It's pretty clear cut. When you fall off a bike, you've got an injury and you've broken a bone. So I don't think that's pre-existing. So bug rider leader exposures. Ride leader leads ride on an unsafe road, trails, and someone is injured. So would a ride leader and the bicycle user group, would they be covered in those circumstances? The answer is yes. One, they've got to the injured party, and let's say it's a rider in that team or user group, I should say. If I'm riding behind a accredited ride leader and I get injured, because I know there's a hole in the road, or it's really wet and I get injured, can I then have a go at the ride leader to say, well, you should have stopped the ride, it was too wet, or the road's, I don't know, under repair, you should have stopped the ride and put us all on the edge of the road to walk our bikes for the next kilometre? I could, you know, one, I've got to show one, I'm injured, two, that there is, what was the reason for the injury, and the third one is I've got to point the blame at somebody. So could that occur? Yes, it could. Is the ride leader covered? Yes, they are. Is the bicycle user group covered? If I was the injured party and I thought, well, I'm not only going to sue Freddie Bloggs, the ride leader, I'm going to sue the bicycle user group because I pay my fees to them and they should have provided a better environment, safer environment for me. So end of the day, ride leaders covered, bicycle user groups covered as well. Second point there is ride leader breaks a road rule and someone is injured. Interesting question. Unfortunately, with insurance, there's always a little bit of grey. So there is conditions in the policy that say you need to abide by government regulations and rules and not be involved in criminal activity. It really comes down to the circumstances. If your ride leader is leading the pack and goes through an amber light, and he gets through, and so does the next person, but I don't know, the 4th, 5th and 10th persons go through in a completely red light and they get injured. Could they hold the ride leader responsible? We're getting into a legal area from the viewpoint of I don't know the answer to that. You know, there's a part of me that would say, well, you don't have to go through the red light. You've got to comply with the rules of the road. But if they did sue the ride leader because they thought they'd just have a crack at them and it was a significant injury that justified doing so, or they saw a no-win, no-fee ambulance chasing lawyer, hopefully none of those are on the call, they might have a crack at the ride leader. At the end of the day, the policy would provide protection for that ride leader. And the insurance company would defend the ride leader to say, well, yeah, they went through an amber light, but that didn't give the go-ahead for the others to follow through. So that's where I say it's a little bit grey, depends on the circumstances. Third point down, ride leader allows a non-Bicycle New South member to participate in a ride that a non-member injures somebody else in the ride or damages somebody else's property. That's a scenario that we talked about before. This question's aimed at, is the ride leader covered? Yes, if somehow they could frame a claim against the ride leader because someone's been injured because the other part, someone's had a loss and someone else, the person that's made the loss is not insured, I just can't see that they're getting through the court system. But at the end of the day, the ride leader is covered under the public liability professional indemnity policy, so there would be coverage for a frivolous claim like that, and the legal costs which emanate from that as well. So there is cover in place. As I said, when we do examples of claims, we're getting to a legal issue. It's hard. I can't say yes or no because a lot of these haven't even hit the courts, and they won't hit the courts because the insurance company will just commercially settle them because fighting them is going to cost them money. Bicycle New South Wales liability insurance protection for ride leaders if they are held liable so long as the activity, oh sorry, that was our comment. Bicycle New South Wales liability insurance provides protection for ride leaders if they are held liable so long as the activity is undertaken is not illegal. So it sort of dovetails in with some commentary that I mentioned before. Some more generic ones, not relating necessarily to bicycle user groups. Certificates of currency, if you ever need those to satisfy property owners and councils and that sort of stuff, contact Bicycle New South Wales. We don't have a list of all the bugs, I don't think, but they can certainly provide that for you and put on interested parties if you need to put on their Bunnings or councils or whatever it might be. I've mentioned why Medicare expenses not covered. Unfortunately, it's a government legislation. It's been around since 1952. So why they won't allow insurance companies to cover that gap, I've got no idea. But we can't pay it anyway. Club bug members cover for personal action insurance. I think I've mentioned that before. And I probably should just hone in on that from the viewpoint of just because I'm a member of a bug, it doesn't mean I automatically get personal action insurance. I have to be a member of Bicycle New South Wales to get cover for personal action insurance. So that is a reasonably good, strong point. Our bug property covered under the Bicycle New South Wales insurance program? No. So if you do have property as a bicycle user group, I don't know what that might be. Bollards or witches' hats or something. If you do own some property, that's not automatically included in the insurance program that's provided through Bicycle New South Wales. Can we do that? Yes, we do. Contact our office if you've got any sort of property that you need to. Could be laptops or something like that if they're owned by the bug. Thank you for the opportunity. Alistair, I'll throw it back to you, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Guy, I can see that you've already unmuted your microphone, so I'll go with you first. Carolyn, I'll go with you second.
If a member has private health cover, does the insurance cover the gap that then ensues in the private health insurance arrangements?
I can answer that one. Yes, it does. So the requirement is if, let's say it's a physio bill, the physio bill is $100. They've got private health insurance that might pay $50 of that. The other $50 is paid under this insurance, the personal accident non-Medicare medical cover. Yeah, and what we've also seen is with private health insurance, let's say there's a significant injury they need to get going to a private hospital and the theatre costs involved, you could have a $500 excess for theatre costs, for example. That would be paid under this Bicycle New South Wales policy as well. So it does pay the gap of private hospital costs because that is a non-Medicare medical cost.
Does the indemnity cover include overseas bike riding?
No, it doesn't. It does in New Zealand, but not per se.
Okay, New Zealand only.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Carolyn. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Hi, it's Carolyn James. I'm actually in the orange bug, just hello from west of the Blue Mountains. A couple of questions we're trying to do in our bug, which has been reactivated and expanded since COVID with all the increased cycling is we're doing it basically, we repeat some of our rides each on a roster. So we've quite a risk assessment of the ride that we sort of have in our backhand. I'm hoping that is something that would assist in insurance claims, to be able to prove that we've had a risk assessment done of that particular ride for best endeavours of making the ride safe. The second thing is we even if this doesn't apparently isn't an injury, we still log an incident report in case something happens later, an injury comes up later. So again, I'm hoping that those are the kinds of things that you as an insurer would like, or Bicycle New South Wales likes, and strengthens any claims or mitigates any vulnerabilities.
The first two, risk management, anything to do with risk management, incident reporting is advantageous. So I take my hat off, Carolyn, to you and the orange there with your wineries and everything. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. And because there is an attitude, some people say, oh, I don't want to do risk management. I don't want to know about anything, because if I do and we get held liable, then it'll be on my head and all the rest of it. That's not the right attitude. The attitude is review circumstances, review the exposures. If you can mitigate it, terrific. All that sort of thing. If we can assist you with some information to tick a box sort of thing, we'll do whatever we possibly can, working in conjunction with Bicycle New South Wales. And I think the second part was just those incident reports. Always good to have incident reports, particularly if you've got infrequent members coming in, only because you could have someone come back in 2 months' time and say, 2 months ago I was injured, I want to make a claim, and you go, were you? Don't remember that. If you've got an incident report, it just makes it easier to track things and sign off to say that Freddie Boggs was injured on this day.
And I understand that I'm using the current incident report pro forma that was in the Ride Leaders Pack when I became accredited. So, all right. Sorry, quick one other question. I'm sorry to take time. Does the insurance cover if we go off-road? Now, I'm not talking mountain biking, but in the regions we often go on dirt roads, council reserves, often it's still on public land, but not necessarily roads. I'm assuming the insurance covers if someone falls off a gravel laneway.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about on private land?
Oh, yeah, still covered. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So I've asked you to
unmute. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. This is for Bicycle New South Wales and for the insurer. All of our accredited ride leaders are members of Bicycle New South Wales, as are the executive committee members. We try to get new members to join Bicycle New South Wales, but I would say that the majority of our regular riders are not members of Bicycle New South Wales. The ride leader is, and a few others. Should we be to be extra sure for insurance purposes, advise them at the beginning of the ride when we're going through the where the ride's going and any safety precautions and stuff, say to the riders, if you are not a member of Bicycle New South Wales, you are not covered if you're injured.
Yeah, that is one part. And then there's also the part of the liability issue. Isn't that right,
So
Rob?
should we be telling people that aren't riders that aren't members of Bicycle New South Wales that they aren't covered if they're injured?
It's a good question, Marion. It really is. And there is contention if they're not members of Bicycle New South Wales. You or I can't put your hand on your heart and say that they are covered. So they may say, well, I've got my own private health insurance and all the rest of it. I don't want to be a member of Bicycle New South Wales. The issue that I think I articulated before and Alison just touched on then is that if that person injured you, if you're in the ride, then you may not be able to sue them because they haven't got liability insurance. That's the downside. Now, they fall off their bike and they just break their arm or something, or injure themselves and can't work or incur medical costs. If they're not a member of Bicycle New South Wales and you don't know what the cover is and all the rest of it, you're right. You'd probably be saying, well, I can't confirm what insurance covers in place for you. So it's a delicate conversation, but I suppose if you just play it with a straight bat at the start of the ride, you can say if you're not a member of Bicycle New South Wales, I can't guarantee you whether you've got personal accident insurance or not. And those that are members of Bicycle New South Wales, if we've got people on the ride that aren't members of Bicycle New South Wales, there's an exposure here because they may not be covered for liability insurance if they injure you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So would you advise that we should say that?
I think it's worthwhile. I do, in this litigious world that we live in. You fulfilling your obligations as a committee member or official or whatever you want to call yourself. It's a challenging one, Marianne. You know, if you take a sport, you know, a basketball, netball, soccer, football, I don't know, whatever it might be. If you come together and you have a training or a game, everybody's insured because they're all members. Your activity is a little unique where it's not that sort of framework or structure. So people roll up, and some have insurance and some don't. You know, it's not dissimilar to, you know, if I drive somewhere, I don't know whether there's other people on the road that haven't registered their car and don't have third-party registration or, you know, CT.
Property.
I've got no idea. Now they collect me and hit me, and I'm permanently disabled. I'm going to try and sue them. They haven't got any cover, so I'm in a bit of trouble. But it's not like they're riding around with a sticker on their car saying I'm uninsured. I've just stolen the car. I don't have CTP cover. That's just the luck of the land to some extent. But you as the organizer, I just think it's wise to you know, before the ride, to say, hey guys and girls, you know, this is what we're doing today. Well, it looks pretty good. You know, everybody's bikes, tyres pumped up and oil greased and God knows what all. And just make you aware, if you're not a member of Bicycle New South Wales, I can't verify that if you fall off, you're covered for personal accident. And other members, if you're a member of Bicycle New South Wales, if somebody else isn't, they injure you, they may not be covered for liability. You know.
Okay. Well, thanks for that advice.
Dave has a question. Is ride registration at the beginning of each bug ride mandatory for insurance purposes? That's outlined in the ride leader course, that you need to have a list of the riders on the ride. All right. That seems to have wrapped it up if I've got no more hands or questions. A big thank you to Rob, Lucy, Shauna for putting this on and spending the time on a Thursday afternoon. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, and please go back to your bugs and sort of relay any information. If you've got any questions from our team at Bicycle New South Wales or V Insurance, please send it through. Obviously, all the links and details were in the presentation. They'll come through shortly to everyone that attended, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, mate.